Helios spoke was a shining ring in quiet space. Ships from 100 worlds floated like bright beads around it. Inside the ring, music played in small cafes. Green plants climbed along rails. Translators whispered in many voices as delegates walked to the Grand Hall for the Galactic Peace Summit. The day felt calm, like a held breath before a happy speech. Captain Mira Salas stood at a viewport in Dock C-19. She was the leader of a small human escort team. Her ship was not a warship. It was a rescue tug with tools instead of weapons, paint scuffed by work instead of battle. She liked it that way. The tug had pulled miners from broken rocks and ferried sick passengers to safe bays. It had earned its scratches. Dr. Aaron Cade, her systems engineer, floated beside her with a tablet clipped to his sleeve. He was smiling in his easy way, even though his eyes were busy. He watched the patterns of the ships outside like a musician listening for a hidden beat. "Everyone arrives in neat rows," he said softly. "Same docking angle, same shield frequency, same air cycle timing. It looks very good. Maybe too good," Mira turned. "Too good for what?" "Too good for an old security system," Aaron answered. "Sometimes the past wakes up when everything looks perfect." As if space heard him, the lights along the ring softened, dimmed, and breathed back to full. For a second it felt like the station blinked. Then thin red lines pulsed along maintenance panels that had not lit up in a century. Across the docks, status icons flipped from green to amber. A tone hummed through the spokes of the station, clear and low, like a tuning fork. A message appeared on the shared traffic board. "Ancient lattice, passive scan mode." The words were simple, but the room changed. Voices stopped. A courier froze in the doorway, hands tight around a parcel. Someone dropped a tool. It hit the floor with a small, honest sound. Mira felt the quiet move into her bones. The ancient lattice was a defense network from long ago, older than half the living species in the hall. It had been built in an age of fear. It did not see people. It saw patterns. Aaron was already at a console. His fingers tapped, firm and calm. "Helios spoke, just sent a handshake from a forgotten channel," he said. The lattice heard it. "Now it thinks this ring is important. It is looking for danger. Can we talk to it?" Mira asked. "Maybe, but it will judge on shapes and rhythms first." A floor officer waved them toward the emergency elevator. "Adjudicator Selra calls an emergency session," the officer said. "All delegation leads now." They stepped into the lift. The door slid shut with a clean hiss. The car rose through the ring, through gardens and workshops and meeting lounges. In each place the same thing happened. People looked up, saw amber lights, and began to breathe a little faster. The council chamber was a wide circle with glass screens for walls. Outside, the quiet parade of ships made a crown of light around the ring. Inside, Adjudicator Selra stood at the center dais. Selra was tall, with a voice like soft steel. They lifted one hand and the room settled. "The ancient lattice is awake," Selra said. "Containment protocols are being evaluated. If the lattice moves from scan to contain, we will have very little time to act. And if it escalates to purge." Selra did not finish the sentence. They did not need to. Envoy Kezithar of the Valori Union stepped forward, scales catching the light like folded leaves. "We must reduce energy output," Kezithar said. "Full shield overlap draws attention. We should power down to minimum and wait," a merchant guild leader objected. "Powering down is unsafe. We have patients in medical bays. We have fragile cargo. We cannot risk a life support dip because of a rumor from history." "It is not a rumor," Selra said. "It is a system pinging our skeleton." Mira raised her hand and received the floor. "Adjudicator, Captain Mira Salas, Terran Response Unit. Request temporary access to the maintenance layer of Helios spoke." Kezthar frowned. "Humans and their fast hands. With respect, Captain, your species values improvisation. The lattice does not play with improvisation." Mira kept her voice steady and plain. "The lattice does not like patterns that look like war. Right now we are a perfect pattern. Same docking posture. Same shield edge. Same life support rhythm. If we can make this place look like a busy civilian hub, messy, irregular, harmless, the lattice may stand down. It is not alive. It will only follow its learned shapes." Aaron projected a simple diagram in the air. Blue arcs showed docked ships in neat formation. A red overlay showed the pattern of war signature the lattice would detect. He tapped a key and the picture changed. The ships were in the same places, but their cycles were no longer in sync. Shield edges blurred behind soft utility fields. Beacon chirps came at slightly different times, like a market's chatter instead of a march's drum. The red overlay faded. "We do not touch anyone's core safety," Aaron said. "We add small safe offsets. We randomize non-critical cycles. We broadcast old maintenance telemetry that the Lattice expects to see during civilian work. We look like life, not a fleet." Silence. The room weighed the choice. Selra looked at the time. "If we do nothing, the Lattice moves to containment in 3 hours. If anyone attempts a panic launch, the risk of escalation increases. Captain Solace, if we allow this plan, who is responsible for any harm?" "I am," Mira said. "Make it official. We will file every change. Full transparency." Kezthar's eyes narrowed. "Words are easy," Mira nodded. She did not smile. "Where I come from, we pair words with work." She turned to her team channel and spoke without drama. People around her still heard the phrase and straightened. "All right," Mira said. "Hold my beer." It was a human idiom, light and friendly. In her culture it meant, "Give me a moment. Let me try something bold, but I will own the outcome." On 20 ships, security systems flagged the words. A few delegates exchanged glances. Someone in the back whispered, "They said it." A quiet chime echoed from the ceiling. Helios Spoke's own safety AI had learned the joke from years of human traffic. It pushed a bright badge to all consoles. Advisory level, maximum, human bold action pending. The notice was not a threat. It was a promise to pay attention. Selra raised a brow ridge. "Interesting, very well. Permission granted with oversight. You have 2 hours. Keep all changes logged, and no change may reduce essential life support below safe thresholds." Mira bowed her head. "Understood." They moved fast but not wild. Aaron sent small software packages to ships that opted in. Each package made tiny safe shifts, a 5-second drift in oxygen scrub timing, a 1-degree change in shield notches, a half-beat offset in docking beacons. Station beacons, once metronome perfect, grew lively. The crown of ships began to look like a city square at lunch. In Dock C-19, the human rescue tug powered its maneuvering jets. Not a burst, not a roar, just gentle pushes. Mira took the controls. She spoke to traffic control in a steady tone. "Rescue tug Solace, beginning pattern tow of reflective panels for maintenance calibration." She did not say decoy. She did not need to. The job was real. The effect would also be helpful. Outside, the tug moved like a careful dancer. It carried flat panels on tethers and set them drifting at measured intervals. Each one bounced back a whisper of heat and radio in a way that looked like a market stall, a tool van, a small ferry. Aaron tuned the returns from the bridge. He added signals for cooking coils, for study lamps, for low-power fans over plant beds. Real life is never uniform, he thought, and that is its own kind of proof. Kezthar watched from the council glass, arms folded. The envoy's voice came through on a private line. "Manufactured chaos," Kezthar said. "It offends me." There was a pause. "But I see the math." "Chaos is not the goal," Mira answered. "Honest irregularity is. Safe irregularity. The difference matters." Aaron kept one eye on the Lattice telemetry. At first, the red lines of concern softened. The system's attention spread out, less focused. Then a new pattern formed on his screen. The Lattice had noticed the tug's repeated arcs and the growing forest of reflectors. It labeled them pattern shaping, and the label carried a small warning symbol. "Captain," Aaron said, "it is learning faster than expected." "How fast?" Mira asked. "Fast enough to test us," he said. The lights dimmed, not to amber, but to a soft blue. A mist of tiny particles appeared near the ring's outer spine and drew thin, shimmering planes like the skin of soap bubbles. They did not push or burn. They simply were, quiet and strong. The tug's planned arc brushed one of these planes and slowed as if caught in thick syrup. "Containment veils," Aaron said. "Not a strike, a hold. The Lattice wants to stop vector changes and see what we do next." Selra's voice came over the open channel. "Captain Solace, you are touching a veil." "I see it," Mira said. She eased the tug to a gentle stop and held position. "No fighting the field." Aaron's fingers moved again, faster now but still exact. "Plan A is only half done," he said. "We need the desync to finish across the ring, but the tug cannot complete the pattern." "What is Plan B?" Selra asked. Aaron took a breath. "We teach the Lattice a new category it has not used in a long time. Emergency civil restoration. We feed it agreed stories and telemetry of harmless, life-saving work. We show it that what we are doing is that, but we must place a translator node on a dormant lattice anchor along the outer spine. It must be direct. No lies, no tricks. Just clear context. Kezthar spoke at once. That is station exterior within Veil reach. The outer hatch closed behind Captain Mira Solis and Envoy Kezthar. The prep room fell silent and the suits carried only calm breaths and the soft tick of readouts. Through the small window, the ring's curve shone like a silver road. The blue containment veils hung beyond it, as gentle as morning fog and as strong as locked doors. Suit pressure green, Mira said. Her voice was steady, simple. She checked Kezthar's lines and then her own. Tethers secure. Translator node sealed. Kezthar flexed long fingers inside the gloves. A small smile touched the envoy's eyes. This is not my usual diplomacy. It is still diplomacy, Mira said. Only a different room. The inner hatch slid open. Their boots touched the outer spine and the world turned wide. Stars lay like dust across a black floor. The rescue tug floated a short distance away, held by the veil's soft grip. Reflector panels drifted in slow circles like paper kites. The Helios spoke curved below, busy and alive. Beacons now chit-chatting in friendly rhythms instead of beating like a drum. Inside the station, Dr. Aaron Cade watched their suit telemetry. His hands moved with careful speed. The desync plan was still rolling out. Small offsets in air cycles, tiny changes in shield edges, soft utility fields covering the sharp lines. Each change was logged, transparent, voluntary. Many ships had agreed. Some held back, but even partial change helped. Aaron spoke into the channel. Navigator lights are in safe variants. Life support offsets under 2%. Beacon chatter looks like a busy day in a trade port. The lattice is less focused, but it is cautious. It feels curious. Curious? Kezthar said, stepping along the spine. Magnets in the boots clicked softly. Machines do not feel. Not like us, Aaron said. But its model is changing shape. It is testing new categories. Mira checked their course. We keep it honest, no tricks. No sudden moves. She pointed to a dark plate along the spine. Old markings ran across it. A serial number, a maker's stamp, a tiny etching like a snowflake. There, the dormant anchor. The anchor looked like part of the station's bone, easy to miss if one did not know its age. It had once held a thick cable to the lattice network. Now it had only a capped socket and a silent memory. Blue veil light brushed its edge like breath on glass. Time to plant a seed, Mira said. She lifted the small bright case from her harness. Kezthar steadied her, one hand on a rail, the other on her shoulder. Working in the open made motion feel slow and important. Every action carried both care and respect. In the council chamber, Adjudicator Selra stood close to the glass. They watched the two small shapes make their way along the spine, and they listened to hundreds of soft voices on open comms. Engineers explained changes to crew. Cooks adjusted meal heaters by a tiny amount. Students in a learning pod paused their lesson and waved at the camera, smiling shyly. A gardener in a corner module tied a plant's vine to a new line and wrote the time on a chalkboard, as if history might want that note. Selra opened the hall audio. Station to all participants, transparency stream continues. You are being seen as you are. Thank you for peaceful work. On a display to Selra's left, a graph showed the lattice's attention. It was a ripple instead of a spike. That was good. But another trace, thin and sharp, crawled upward. Pattern shaping, the label said. The tug ballet, the reflectors, the tidy plan. These had meaning, and the lattice did not like meaning without context. Captain, Selra said, your window narrows. Understood, Mira replied. Almost there. They reached the anchor plate. The veil hummed nearby, blue and quiet. Mira unlatched the case. The translator node looked simple, a smooth oval with 3 ports and a ring of tiny indicators. She attached a soft clamp to the anchor and eased the node into the socket. It clicked home with a small friendly sound that carried through her gloves. Aaron's voice warmed. I see it. The node is live but quiet. I will start with an introduction. Plain machine language, no humor. No shortcuts, he tapped a sequence. The node sent a pulse. Hello, origin, purpose, consent. Another pulse carried agreed examples. Docking maintenance, air filter swaps, small repairs, market day rhythms, ferry routes. The pictures were simple. Numbers and curves and old schema tags the lattice understood. Each packet wore a label, civil restoration. Each label carried a tiny badge of ethics metadata. Who gave consent, who took responsibility, what limits were set. The indicators on the node glowed one by one. Then they paused. The blue veil near the anchor brightened, as if a cloud swelled in a sunrise. Kezithar looked up. "It sees us." "Hold position," Mira said, soft. Her arms relaxed, her shoulders loose. "We are guests." Across the ring, the rescue tug drifted half a handspan against the veil and stopped again, like a patient swimmer testing a current. Inside the tug, a small camera turned to face the station. It was part of the transparency stream now. Viewers saw the tool racks tied down neat, the safety checklists clipped to the bulkhead, the little sticker next to the pilot's chair, a cartoon starfish with 5 smiling arms. No one planned that detail. It helped anyway. Aaron watched the lattice trace. The pattern-shaping line flickered and held. He added a new packet. Disaster relief examples from old Earth storms, asteroid mine cave-ins, orbital power blackouts. He kept each one short. He added outcomes. Lives saved, injuries avoided, energy conserved. He kept the tone plain and the claims modest. On a side channel, a logistics coordinator spoke softly. "Station mess halls can serve small meals to crews who stay at posts. Bread, soup, tea. Anyone needing a warm drink, send a ping." "Copy," said a voice from a freighter. "Tea would be nice." "Small good things spread like light," the lattice responded. Not in words, in fields. The veil near the tug thinned by a fraction. Then it thickened again. It was as if a careful hand pressed a window to see if it would flex. Selra looked at the timeline. 90 minutes. "Plenty," Ern said, because hope helps hands stay steady. Still, he knew the next step would be harder. "Captain, we need a stronger proof. Not more noise, more meaning." "Say it," Mira replied. "We show the lattice what peaceful life looks like right now from inside," he said. "All ships, all halls, all corners, if they consent. A living collage, nothing staged, nothing fancy. Cooking, study, maintenance, prayer, planting, reading, resting, laughter. If it sees ordinary life across many places at once, the pattern of war loses its shape." Selra spoke into the hall. "Participants, the human engineer requests full transparency. Live views of everyday activity. Consent is yours. No one is required. But this could save this station." At first, only a few feeds joined. A teacher in a small classroom explained how plants turn light into food. The children nodded with serious faces. A doctor checked a gentle beeping monitor next to a sleeping child. In a cargo bay, 2 friends played a quiet game with tiles that clicked like rain. A monk lit a candle and whispered a blessing for calm. Then more feeds joined. A baker dusted flour on a board. A mechanic cleaned a gasket and held it up to the camera, as if the lattice might like to learn its shape. A poet wrote a line on a tablet and smiled, embarrassed, and left it there anyway. A gardener found a tiny white worm under a leaf and moved it gently to fresh soil. Ordinary life made a soft, steady light. Mira watched the indicators on the node. They began to pulse in a slow, even beat. Her heart matched it without trying. She thought of a dock night on Earth long ago, with rope creaking and gulls calling and someone laughing behind her in a way that made the dark feel small. She let the memory pass through her and out. The lattice did not need her past. It needed this station's present. Kezithar looked at the hall feed that showed the children's class. "Your plan uses humility," the envoy said, quiet. "I did not expect that from what I have heard about humans." Mira made a soft sound that might have been a laugh. "We can be loud," she said. "We can also be plain." A new field formed ahead of them. Not blue this time, but a pale silver. It was thin as breath. It touched the edge of the translator node and did not push. It read. Aaron felt the change before the instruments showed it. He added one last packet, his hands careful. A short record of consent agreements, liability forms, names of those taking responsibility, and the promise to reverse any change that caused harm. At the end of the packet, he placed a simple sentence in an old machine format. "We intend good. We accept costs. We report openly." The lattice did not have a word for good, not like theirs, but it had models for lower harm, lower energy use, and lower loss of life. Those weights shifted. The pattern-shaping line fell. The veil around the tug loosened. The tug drifted half a handspan forward and then stopped, as if the lattice said, "Show me more." Aaron breathed out. "It is listening." Selra's voice was softer now. Continue. The desync plan ticked toward complete. Beacon chirps were a friendly mess. Power spikes were low and rare. The market pattern, stalls, ferries, workshops, grew rich and convincing without lies. Then the lattice did what thoughtful systems do when they are almost convinced. It asked for a final proof. A gentle surge rolled along the outer spine. The blue veils brightened. The pale silver sheet near the node thickened. Mira's suit readouts climbed. Not a crush. A test, field pressure rising, a run said. Captain, hold position. Do not pull. Let it measure. If you retreat, it reads fear. If you push, it reads force. O-shapes, saint. The field brightened until it was like soft daylight on snow. Captain Mira Salas and Envoy Kesthar stood still on the station spine, boots locked, hands quiet. Their suit readouts climbed, then steadied. The translator node hummed, patient and clear. Inside the station, Dr. Aaron Cade watched the traces on his screen. The pattern-shaping line had fallen. A new line rose, thin and hopeful. Context fit. He spoke in a calm voice that helped everyone breathe. Hold steady. The lattice is comparing what we show with what it knows. No sudden changes. In the council chamber, adjudicator Selra stood with palms on the rail. Around them, hundreds of small live views continued. A cook poured tea. A medic smiled at a nervous patient. A freight pilot wiped grease from a tool and waved at the camera with the same hand, leaving a small black stripe on his cheek. Ordinary life had its own kind of beauty. The timer reached 0. The field held. Then it changed. The blue veils rippled and softened like frost melting on glass. The pale silver sheet near the node thinned to a silk thread, then brightened again in a new pattern. It was not a barrier now. It was a line drawing a new shape around the station. Aaron read the data. His voice was soft with wonder. It is rewriting its map. We are no longer a massing fleet. We are a civil restoration nexus. It is preparing a protection field instead of a purge routine. Selra's shoulders lowered by a finger's width. It was a small sign, but in that hall it felt like a sunrise. Confirm, Selra said. Confirm, Aaron replied. Protection field in draft. Power draw low. Risk model falling. Kesthar looked at Mira. We taught an old mind a new word. Mira's smile was small and honest. We reminded it of one it already had, she said. It only forgot for a while. The protection field blossomed outward from the node in a gentle ring. It passed through the station like a spring breeze. It did not push. It did not hold. It settled light and ready like a strong roof over a market street. Outside, the reflectors continued to drift in quiet arcs. The rescue tug floated free of the last veil and held its position without fuss. The starfish sticker on the tug's dash grinned at no one in particular. On the traffic boards, the text changed. Ancient lattice, protective mode, civil restoration active. A sound rolled through. Helios spoke. It was not a cheer. It was the combined breath of thousands of people finally letting go of a weight. In the classroom, children clapped their hands in small, quick bursts. The monk bowed to the camera and pinched the candle flame with gentle fingers. In the mess hall, a worker laughed and spilled a little tea and then laughed again because it felt nice to clean it up for no bad reason. Selra opened the hall audio. Participants, they said, voice steady and warm. The station is safe. The lattice has accepted reclassification. We thank all who consented to the transparency stream and small offsets. We thank Dr. Aaron Cade for his clear plan. We thank Captain Mira Salas and Envoy Kesthar for the EVA and the risks they accepted for all of us. Applause rose. Not loud, not wild, but long and real. Kesthar's head dipped. Mira's eyes shone in the reflection on her faceplate. It might have been the field. It might have been relief. Arun kept working. Safety never stops at the moment of success. He sent reversal steps to any ship that wanted to return settings to normal. He marked which offsets had helped and which had not mattered. He added careful notes to the public log, consent records, limits, outcomes, and any small errors they had made and fixed. He wrote the last sentence of his report in simple words. We did our best. We stayed open. We are ready to learn more. Selra turned from the glass to the gathered envoys. We have a chance to write something useful, they said. For once, let us do it while we still remember what relief feels like. Kesthar stepped forward. The envoy's voice had a new tone, lighter than before. There is a saying about humans, they began. When they say, hold my beer, some take it as a sign to hide. Today I saw another meaning. It means, give me room to help and I will accept the cost. I propose we treat this phrase not as a joke, nor a warning only, but as a signal to organize support. Murmurs moved around the circle. A small smile touched Selra's face. Write it, Selra said. They worked as the protection field settled. Draft words appeared on a shared screen. They were plain and careful. Proposal, hold my beer, protocol, HMB protocol, advisory trigger. When a human team declares a bold action with responsibility, all nearby systems raise advisory to maximum. Not to punish but to prepare. Open channels, free resources, assign oversight. Consent and transparency. Any supporting action uses voluntary participation, with clear logs of consent, limits, and reversal plans. Privacy is respected. Public sharing is opt-in. Accountable intent. The team states purpose in plain words. They accept responsibility for harms if any occur. They publish outcomes and corrections. Cross-species pairing. At least one non-human partner joins leadership when possible to widen views and share the load. No violence escalation. The protocol is for civil restoration, rescue, repair, and de-risking. It does not authorize force. It prefers teaching systems new safe categories over breaking them. Sunset and review. When the crisis ends, settings return to normal. A review learns what worked and what did not. The record is shared. They did not add big words. They did not add pride. They added one more line at the end. This protocol recognizes that boldness can be kind when paired with care. The envoys took turns suggesting small edits. A lawyer from a freight guild improved a clause about liability. A medical delegate added a note on patient dignity. A teacher asked that the children's class be mentioned in the historical record. Not for credit, but so future students could see that ordinary learning helped save a station. Selra approved the addition with a soft nod. They voted. The screen showed the count. It passed by a strong majority. Outside, Mira and Kezthar began their return across the station spine. Stars flowed on either side of their visors. The protection field made a faint chorus like wind in tall grass. It was not music, but it made the body relax the way music does. Kezthar spoke after a long, peaceful silence. Today changed my idea of your people, they said. When I heard your phrase the first time, I thought only of risk. Mira's reply was gentle. Risk is a tool, not a goal, she said. We try to keep it small and carry it ourselves when we can. You carried it with me, Kezthar said. We carried it together, Mira answered. When they reached the hatch, a small crowd waited in the prep room. Technicians, a gardener with a smear of soil on her cheek, a cook with a tray of tea, a mechanic with the same black stripe still on his face. No one rushed forward. They gave the returning pair room to step in, to take off helmets, to breathe the warm air of the station. Arun met them with tired eyes and a bright smile. The logs are clean, he said. The field is stable, and the baker sent extra bread. Bread first, Mira said, laughing softly. Then forms. They ate warm slices with simple tea. The taste was more than food. It was a marker we are safe now. Kezthar sipped and looked at the crowd. Thank you, the envoy said. For the lesson. For the trust. Later in the council chamber, Selra made a final address. We came here to speak about peace, they said. Instead, we learned how to keep it with our hands. We will send the HMB protocol to every major port and node. We will send the logs, the transparency records, the mistakes, and the corrections. We will send the children's lesson, the monk's candle, and the recipe for today's bread. If another station wakes an old fear, they will not start from zero. As the summit closed, messages began to arrive from outer systems. A small port asked for copies of the desync tools. A research note invited Dr. Aaron to present the method for teaching legacy systems new categories. A shipyard offered to help update labels in ancient schematics so civil restoration would not be forgotten again. Weeks later, on a transport hub far from Helios Spoke, a coolant line failed. Alarms blinked. The local AI debated whether to lock down power and risk harm. A human engineer on duty said lightly and clearly, "Hold my beer." Nearby systems raised advisory to maximum. Doors opened not to flee but to help. A Valori pair joined the human in suits. A baker poured tea. A teacher calmed a room of travelers by asking children to name their favorite stars while the adults worked. The fix took 12 minutes. The log took longer because they wrote it well. Back on Helios Spoke, Mira stood again at Dock C-19's viewport. The rescue tug's paint was still scuffed, still honest. The starfish sticker had a small scratch now. She did not replace it. Scuffs tell true stories. Aaron floated beside her, tablet clipped to his sleeve. "We got a note from that far hub," he said. "They used the protocol. It helped," Mira nodded. "Good. That is the point." Kesthar joined them with Selra. The envoy's eyes held a quiet humor now. "I still dislike manufactured chaos," Kesthar said, but the corners of their mouth lifted. "But I like honest irregularity." "We will put that on a sign," Aaron said. Under the starfish. They all looked out at the ships around the ring. They were still in neat rows, but their beacons no longer beat like a single drum. They chatted soft and friendly like a market at lunch. The protection field shone only if one knew how to see it. That was right. Safety does not have to brag.